Hey, buddy.
You infected me in Bocca. You've infected me
I've infected your Bocca.
in the Bocca.
That's what happens when you hang out with me.
Ugh,
Yeah.
I knew it. What is that sensation?
That's Bocca.
That's
In the Bocca.
In the Bocca.
Deep in the Bocca. Great. And cut. Chris Sullivan. That's you. No introduction needed. We're here to talk in Bocca.
Yeah.
So, tell me what you knew about these books before Zippo.
I knew absolutely zero.
Wow.
Until your documentary and until your enthusiasm for the subject, and then you sent me this, and I got to touch it and feel it
And then you really fall.
and flip through it,
Right.
and really investigate it. Yeah.
It's a tactile experience.
It is.
A
It
good
is.
lover.
I mean,
Yeah.
there's something you talk about it in your documentary that you can't quite quantify it until you hold one. When you realize that this thing, if somebody splashed water on me right now, would disappear in my hands.
Right.
Like they are truly fragile,
Yeah.
which is a bizarre thing, a bizarre word to describe a cookbook.
Yeah.
You know, I read it in my kitchen like this, so as not to overstress the binding, and kind of like, I'm like, if I ever wanted to cook from this book, I would just take an iPhone photo
Quickly.
of the page and put the book back on
Hold
the shelf.
your breath. Yeah.
And then look at the photo.
Yeah. Not too much light. You don't want to hurt the.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
exactly.
You realize like those libraries that have the book stands, so
Yeah.
as not to stress the binding,
Yeah.
like what that's for.
Yeah, it's a good
Yeah.
point. But they're meant to be used. I think that
Right.
they didn't think that they were going to be cherished or become rare.
Right.
They were, I think, not a joke, but they were meant almost like as a novelty.
Yeah, there's and I don't. You can tell me more about the Italian culture, but there seems to be a sense of these are the recipes we have now. If we forget them, there'll be new recipes.
Yeah, we're not going to forget how to cook. We're Italian.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
literally, there's one recipe that starts with make a tomato sauce as usual.
Right.
Like this,
That's my favorite part.
make a tomato sauce as usual.
Make a mayonnaise.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Yeah, and it's like for these are for Italians.
Right.
Even though there's English translations, it's like, well, I don't.
Right. They're inconsiderate, is what they are. They're
make
not
a
trying
tomato
to.
sauce as usual. Okay.
Prego. So you've had this book for what? A month?
A month. Yeah. I haven't cooked a single thing from it yet.
I don't know if you've ever cooked, if I've ever had your food.
Oh yeah. I mean, I cook quite a bit, but obviously in the last year the cooking has increased greatly.
I'm sure.
But like I said, I quickly told my other friend John Cross about these books, and the plan was you come over and we'll do what you did in the documentary. We'll take 4 recipes.
You call me, I bring the cameras.
Yeah,
We'll
yeah.
talk about the Bocca too.
Yeah.
The return of Bocca.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And see what we come up with.
Oh my God, that'd be
But,
so
yeah.
much fun.
The things that fascinated me about these recipes is that the majority of them are very simple.
Right.
2-3 ingredients and the instructions on how to combine them.
Right.
But there are stories involved in a lot of them.
Mm-hmm.
Some of which I can't figure out why they're related to the current recipe.
Right.
But again, they're for Italians. Italians would understand, especially Sicilians.
Right.
The people in the region would understand the people who are being referenced, the events that are being referenced.
The saint, the day, the historical.
the festival, the tradition.
Right.
And one of the first, there's a chickpea fritter early on in Sicily's book, because the other thing I kind of just never realized is, oh right, Sicily is Mediterranean,
And it's Turkish, and it's English, and it's...
and it was this, and throughout history has been this crossroads
Yeah.
of cultures, and there's just a lot of Mediterranean foods in this particular. It's almost less Italian and more Greek.
Some Italians would say that too about Sicily. It's like it's kind of a melting pot.
But one of the first recipes in here is not even necessarily meant to be enjoyed or anything. It literally says, if at present we cannot speak about hors d'oeuvres, In our cooking, there are some easy recipes whose main goal is to reduce the natural voracity of our people so as to allow them at least to taste the meal courses.
This is to slow them down.
This is a tool.
It's a filler.
It's a tool to be like, calma, calma,
Yeah.
so that they can actually enjoy the food. It's literally just fried garbanzo beans.
It's just chew on this.
Something, a base level.
You animal.
A base
Right,
layer.
and then we'll eat the meal.
Yeah, to reduce the natural voracity of our people. I love that.
It's intense,
It's
man.
a basket of bread.
Yeah, it's a basket of bread. That's what it is.
It's here. Have some bread and butter.
Yeah, choke on this for bread. I love it. Yeah, they're not necessarily recipes. They're almost like telling you what the culture's like.
Yes.
Like the flavor of the culture versus the flavor of the actual dishes.
Yeah. A chickpea fritter is probably not something I'm going to make, but I've learned something about the way Sicilians approach a meal.
Right.
Which is fascinating to me. Again, the first 15 recipes are about beans. Oh, here we go. The maku, right? The MACCU. That's the bean. That's the chickpea.
The chickpea.
Maku, right? However, our uneasiness is not only moral. Probably this sort of original sin still waits on our nice country and keeps an unfathomable distance between people used to eating polenta as a side dish and people having only maku for lunch as dinner. To explain you exactly what maku is, we will give you a punctual description of both the existing versions, the poor and the rich. This is the recipe. I mean, the recipe is the last 2 sentences, and they've got this whole
explanation
paragraph of why you would consider
the societal weight of the bean.
Yeah. Literally, leave 800 grams of dried fava beans to soak overnight in slightly salty water. The following day, put the pan on the flame and let the beans cook on a low shielded flame. When done, mash them with a fork and add some olive oil. That is all.
It's olive oil and beans.
It's mashed beans that you pour some olive oil on.
Right. But it's an important staple.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. It's another lesson on the culture.
I love that you picked these out, man, because I think it was really hard to explain how these books were more than recipe books. In fact, they're not even recipe books. They're like encyclopedias.
And I liked your description of it, spell books.
Yeah, there's a little bit of magic in there.
They're incantations.
Yeah. Well, they're handwritten. I mean, it's wild stuff.
Yeah. And that's the hard part. You know, you showed some in the doc, but it's like to
let it wash over you.
You have to read you have to flip through a whole book in order to understand like the structure
and the region.
You
know,
this is the one. Prepare noodles with raw garlic. Prepare a tomato sauce as usual.
Yeah, like you do.
However you would.
Quarter a piece of beef. Okay, thanks.
Quarter a piece of beef.
The hind section of a lamb.
There was this is certain things that I would never. Stewed kid. Baby goat. Baby goat, right?
Yeah.
But the stewed kid.
It's like a DJ name or rapper.
Yeah, where are you going to find kid? Can you find baby goat?
Well, wherever you find goat, just hang out.
But not in L.A.
No.
Maybe one place. There's probably one place.
There's
somewhere.
There's a guy in Frogtown that can get it for you.
Cut 2 kilos of kid meat into
just
into pieces and rinse and pat them dry. I mean, there is just a different collection of ingredients.
Yeah, it's a different palette of colors.
I don't want to go through all these, but I mean, like...
I want to hear. We got time.
This is the greatest opening sentence of a recipe I've ever heard. One should have known him well to understand he was angry.
Is it for beans? What is it?
It's for pasta with broccoli. One should have known him well to understand he was angry. His exterior aspect, his voice, and his gestures were the usual ones. Actually, He used to blush only on his front at the root of hhis hair.
Wow.
Only right here. The only time he ever blushed was right here.
But you should have known he was angry.
On his front.
Yeah.
At the root of... And you would have had to known him well to understand he was angry. Casola was again saying, you can draw the people's attention only to a specific evident fact. The danger of an atomic war is easily understood, as well as the real possibility of an ecological disaster. To speak about changes of the logic, crises of ideologies, it does not arouse interest, but on the contrary, scatters the discussion and makes it difficult and accessible only to elites. Pasta with broccoli.
Pasta with broccoli.
I mean, no idea what the... But
Right.
I'm assuming Casola,
Well-
which was capitalized, was a name that somebody in Sicily would
Yeah,
recognize.
bits of literature, bits of poetry.
A politician,
Yeah.
a mayor.
There was a Machiavellian recipe for ham in one of the northern books that was very interesting.
Machiavellian?
Yeah.
Was it labeled as such?
Like Machiavelli was like, this is how I make some ham. And it was like part of a bigger story that had to deal with something in society.
Like, first,
Yeah.
I gaslight the pig.
The ham is like society, a crispy exterior that's succulent, but the deeper you go, you will find the bone. It's like, but you know, he's telling you to put cloves, and the cloves represent this, and it's like, yeah, it's a recipe, but it's much more than a recipe.
Right.
You know, it's
Right.
It's
It's like Shakespearean. And this is like the thing that you can't really like put into words for.
oh,
Like all of a sudden, every 20th page, you would have to know something about Sicily in the 1960s probably
right,
to understand who this character is.
Right.
With the white powdered wig. There's probably class structures involved. There's probably political statements involved.
yeah. There's a cannon. There's a rook up
Right.
there.
Right.
You know,
And yeah, and to decode all of it would I mean you would
Take a lifetime. You'd have to live there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you'd have to live there. Kid's head with omelet.
interesting.
It's just the head of a baby goat that you season well, and then you roast it.
Yeah.
And you beat an egg. You beat eggs, and you pour it over the top of the
head?
baby goat head, and as soon as it forms like a solid egg
Mass?
coating over the goat head,
Yeah.
then you can eat it.
See, I would try that.
Sure,
Why would someone do that?
because you can't throw away a good kid head,
No, and everyone knows the top of the head is the best part.
right?
Yeah.
And it's a culture that wouldn't want to waste something like that, and so you put the normal ingredient, chopped garlic, parsley, salt, pepper, oil, and then to disguise it, you just cover the whole thing in beaten eggs.
Does it say how you roast the head and then pour it on top? What cooks the egg?
Well, first of all, remove the eyes.
Obviously.
Don't.
Come on.
Then
What are we,
boil
amateurs?
the head in salted water, drain, pat, and then you do all of the seasoning. Now beat 4 eggs with salt and pepper and pour them onto the heads while frying. Serve when a thin golden layer of omelet has formed on the heads.
Wow.
But it's
God, that's insane.
insane. There's one last one. Let's see what I marked.
Imagine you go to a hotel in Sicily and like that's the continental breakfast.
Right. It's the late night, and you get home after a long night, and you're like, oh, I hope room service is still open.
Well,
Like, we have one thing.
Go ahead.
We only
omelet.
have one thing left. Kid head with omelet. This was just another example of like the pros, right? So this is just a recipe for cheesy cauliflower. It's cauliflower au gratin,
Okay.
and it's the longest recipe so far.
You had to know him being a hungry man.
I mean,
He loved cauliflower. Perhaps too much.
students of the high school during the troubled post-war period, we were living, trying to understand the meaning of our proximate past, and above all, to perceive the forthcoming future.
Wow.
These are children after World War II. Obscure our school books, still directed to the heirs of the ancient Rome. Even though at the time we lacked any kind of empire, we tried to stand out from the thick pall of standards and penance, in order to breathe an airless rich in glories, no doubt, but surely more suited for our limited breathing capacity.
Wow. It's like poetry. It's Trilusa.
Yeah. And
It's interesting. You get a sense of like why they're eating the food, and like if you made this dish and you remember this recipe,
right.
you're tasting, their sorrow, their frustration, their confusion.
Right.
Okay, it's cauliflower and cheese, but like it could mean so much more to
right.
you.
And it's less about what it is and more about when it was.
Right. Right.
And the comfort that it brought,
right.
or the nourishment that it brought to a country that was, as all of the countries in that region at that time, were in a severe state of transition.
Yeah.
Each recipe is like a secret note that's been passed.
Yeah, they're folding
in like a
history.
time capsule.
Yeah.
Like you've dug it up in your backyard.
Yeah. When I talked to Rodo, the illustrator, there you go. That's one of my favorites. He was saying he wanted to connect with the Sicilian Americans that had left. And they were trying to write a book that did that. And it's funny when you pull out these specific moments in the book, you can get a sense of him trying to talk to them through the recipes.
Right.
Like, remember your history, remember all the profound authors and artists, and the flavors, obviously, but like, remember that it's all tied into this one thing, and that's Sicily. Like, that's Sicily. It's not just the food, it's the culture, it's the people, it's the feeling that you get.
Right.
And then they did it again for all the other regions, and they didn't write the other regions. They went to other authors, because how could they? They didn't know.
Right.
They would know Tuscany or Umbria or Lazio, so they'd have to go to someone local that really got the flavor through history, through culture.
Even today, my first of all, I would love it. The preface is not translated to English. I would love to know what these prefaces.
You have to learn Italian.
Yeah.
No one can explain it to you.
Yeah, it's all part of the process.
Yes.
Even to my brother-in-law's from Verona, and so there are northern inclinations to how they feel about Romans.
Sure.
Or I guess it would be the same way a Californian would feel
Southerners
about
and
Mississippi, or whatever the thing is.
Yeah.
But to try to create a series of books, despite those
Differences.
prejudices or preconceived notions or whatever it is,
or to even celebrate them.
Sure.
I could tell you about New York,
right?
But what do I know about Savannah or Austin?
Sure. Right.
I'd go to Austin and Savannah to find someone
Right.
local to really give me the details. I mean, what was one of your favorite foods as a kid? Like, what's something that you think of or you eat where you're like, God, this brings back a very specific memory or time or feeling?
I was just talking to Rachel about this, and it brought up some like visceral feelings, because it wasn't like a homemade thing. It was like chickpea fritters, right? It was like it was a box of shells and cheese, the Kraft shells and cheese.
Yeah.
But what my mom used to do before she served it, she would put a scoop of butter on the plate, and then pour the shells and cheese over the top. This is not a complicated recipe.
No.
This is not a fancy recipe. But there's something about even just talking about it that takes me back to a place of comfort and a place of fear, a place of transition, being like a preteen, 11, 12-year-old, where everything's changing, the world's changing, the world is scary. And so those types of recipes they're not even recipes. It's like that's what some of these things are. It's like, this isn't a recipe. It's mashed beans with oil.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was like, your mom puts olive oil in her mashed chickpeas?
Right.
That's a good idea.
Right.
I didn't think of that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. But that's why I think they're like spell books, because you read that, and if you had that when you were a kid, it would invoke, like if someone mentioned like the square pizza you get in high school,
Right.
That smell. I don't even the taste. I can't
Yep.
even tell you, but the smell
Yeah.
of the tray and everything like that would bring me back immediately to what I felt like in high school. You know what that was like, or like trying to eat cottage cheese in college because you wanted to like bulk up, skinny down because you're trying to impress girls, and you're like, oh yeah, I remember the smell and flavor of like that
Sure.
particular cottage cheese. Never ate cottage cheese again in my life. You know what I mean? But like, there's certain things that you'd eat and you'd just be like transported immediately back into that moment.
Very evocative. Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. Well, tell me what you like to cook. What's your favorite thing to prepare?
Meats.
Meats.
I like
Good
grill,
night.
I like grilling meats.
Yeah.
I'm still the thing that I like about cooking is it challenges me to improve my level of confidence, because even in the last year, I can still screw up a steak. I can still second guess myself and be like, it's not long enough. It hasn't been on there long enough. I got to leave it on there a little longer, and then you ruin like a perfectly expensive and great
Would be
ribeye
amazing
or
steak,
something.
yeah.
Pasta dishes, I like. The breakfast burrito is probably my mountaintop as far as my culinary abilities
That's what
go.
you base your culinary school on.
Listen, there's the breakfast burrito is the mountaintop as far as food items go for me. It's a perfect
It's got everything.
item.
Yeah.
It's got everything.
Portability.
It's portability. Chorizo, yes. Sausage, yes. But beyond that,
Right. And never a combination. I think that's why the Italian cuisine is always so distinct and good, is because there really is only 3 or 4 ingredients maximum.
Right.
You get over that and it gets
Right.
cloudy. Like, make a decision here.
how are you going to put these together?
Right.
What are you going to put them on?
Right.
It seems to really come down to tomatoes, garlic, and cheese.
I mean, that's the cornerstone.
Right.
Yeah.
Garlic being me.
It depends on it. My father doesn't eat garlic. He hates it.
Hates it.
Rome born. Can't stand it.
Not a lot of garlic in the Roman book.
I would say that if you went to Italy and ate in restaurants, you'd be hard pressed to actually taste garlic in a lot of the food. Maybe in the South a little bit more.
This one has a lot of garlic in the book.
Yeah, because you're dealing with things that aren't meats or have a lot of inherent flavor. They're more vegetable based.
A lot of fish.
Yeah, but like in the North, I think if you tasted garlic, you've over garlicked.
Interesting.
Like carbonara, no garlic.
Sure.
Cacio e pepe. A lot of sauces don't have garlic because it's powerful stuff, man. And Italians like to make out.
You just said. You just talked about it as if it was a controlled substance.
You gotta respect it.
You're like, listen,
I've been through my
garlic
phases.
is powerful stuff, man.
In the 80s, man.
Don't fuck with that.
In the 80s, I was garlicked up every night. Like, I couldn't. I was in
And
parking lots
and I
doing
was
things.
lonely.
It was horrible. But wow, what a ride. What a ride.
My liver
Minced.
was clean, I tell ya.
Cloved, minced. I was taking it anyway. Any way you can give it to me. Pickled.
I love a pickled piece of garlic.
Infused. Wow. The 80s garlic. You can't find 80s garlic anymore. The pure uncut clove. That's it. Okay, great. Like old times. Thanks, buddy.
You want to have some sandwich?
Yeah, dude.
I'll go
Wexler's.
I'll go get it.
Talking all that food made me hungry.